Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another guide for the pre-patch World of Warcraft experience before the great coming of Shadowlands. I am your content creator, Party PD, and welcome back to our very light, in-depth-ish guides for World of Warcraft Paladins today. Today, we will be talking about Protection Paladin, one of the more stronger Prot Paladins both in BFA as well as the upcoming Shadowlands. I've been told by my guild that they're very much looking forward to me maining Prot this season, and I too am looking forward to maining Prot during this expansion. But enough about me, let's get into our discussion for today. Protection Paladin is a wholly based paladin in the sense that it not only is a strong defense capability based tank spec, but also a very high self-heal based tank. And self-heals usually define whether a tank is going to live or die at the end of the day. Because you can rely on your healers as much as you want. But at the end of the day, if you have something that could save you during the time that they're either dead, down, or something else on top of that, then by all means, Protection Paladin is your ride to freedom. Let's go over the talent build for Protection Paladin. The very first one that you should always go for is Holy Shield, because Blessed Hammer is absolute garbage, and if anybody ever goes Blessed Hammer and says otherwise, please tell them to not do it. This basically replaces your best ability known as Hammer of the Righteous, which echoes while in consecration. That makes it to where it deals a small amount of holy damage, but doesn't have this biased, dumb-looking ability that makes it very hard to control. As you can see here, the hammer only hits when it's remotely close to the target and can only stop after 3 points in times. It does have a very slow cooldown time, but it is better to use something that gives you continuous praise and continuous hopes that it will land the target, instead of it having a chance of missing the target completely. So please, for the love of God, do not go Blessed Hammer. What you want to go for is Holy Shield. Your block has a chance your block chances increase by 15%, and you are also able to block spells. And your successful blocks will deal 84 heal damage back to your attacker. So, holy damage, pardon. That's why I'm telling people to go for Holy Shield, because if you end up blocking a spell, and you do it successfully, you're going to return that spell back at that bad boy, technically, and get some damage back in return, which is the equivalent of using Blessed Hammer like a dumbass. Next is the other passive that goes Shield of the Righteous, increasing your strength and stamina by 2% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 3. Again, I still highly recommend Holy Shield, as it is the most reliable return attack damage as a protection-based paladin. Next, misclicked on something. Next, you want to go for Crusader's Judgment, which gives your hammer 2 charges now, and also grants Grand Crusader, and Grand Crusader now also grants a charge of Judgment. Interesting. What is Grand Crusader? Oh, never mind. I read that wrong. Grand Crusader is the passive that triggers while you're as a protection paladin. Here you go. When you avoid a melee attack or use Hammer of the Righteous, you have a 15% chance to reset the cooldown on Avenger's Shield, which is your Avenger's Shield here. Basically, it gives the hammer the ability to also grant Grand Crusader. Next one is another very user-specific one that you could go for and use at your own pace. Again, we're going for the Fist of Justice. Each holy power spent reduces the cooldown of your stun by 2 seconds. Next, this is another very user-specific one. I've seen a lot of people consider going for Unbreakable Spirit, as it reduces the cooldown of your Divine Shield, Argent Defender, and Lay on Hands by 30%. That is honestly one of the better positions to go for, but as a tank who is going into this with a little bit of light on top of that, I like to use the Blessing of Spell Warding. What this does is that it blesses a party member or raid member, granting immunity to magic damage and harmful effects for 10 whole seconds, and this cannot be used on a target, which causes forbearance. And then on top of that, this causes forbearance on the target for 30 seconds. And then the other one, which allows us to gain more mobility, is still Cavalier. Following that, now going into level 40, this is still another very user-specific one that you could pick at your own pace. However, I recommend Divine Purpose again, which allows your abilities to have a 15% chance to make your next Holy Power ability free and deal increased damage by healing by 20%. Again, this works still on using Word of Glory, which you also have now as a Protection Paladin. So it is ideal that you go for Divine Purpose, but you could go for any of them that fits your playstyle. I highly recommend not using Seraphim though, so ideally you should look at either Holy Avenger or Divine Purpose. Next one is another very user-specific one, but also has various amounts of applications that could be done for this. I personally like Judgment of Light. Judgment causes the next 25 successful attacks against the target to heal the attacker for 59 total damage, which will increase as we go into the Shadowlands patch and everybody's health increases as the same. The reason why I picked this one up is because not only does it allow melee-based anybody, actually, to end up healing from your attacks on an enemy, but you yourself can heal on top of this. Next would be the Consecrated Ground, which increases the consecration by 15% overall width, and makes it to where enemies have 50% even more reduced move speed. I believe right now all it does is generate holy damage, and that's it. The other one, which is another very user-specific one, which I recommend if you don't want to use Judgment of the Light and Consecrated Ground doesn't sound interesting to you, it basically will make it to where Word of Glory's healing is increased by the target's missing health on any target. So the big thing we do have to point out is that Word of Glory is this now, because before you used to have Light of the Protector, which used to be the big paladin heal that you would be able to use on yourself. But it has now been taken away, and instead you've been given your Hammer of Wrath again. But of course, as a protection paladin, you don't really have great uses to that, but it still generates a holy power when an enemy is low. And next is Sanctified Wrath, which is another one that I could say, as a protection paladin, you're going to want to use instead of any of these other ones, because Divine Shield makes it to where all targets within 15 yards are taunted. That's great, but you really shouldn't be having that issue as a tank. And next to that would be for each holy power spent would be reducing the Wrath, Avenging Wrath, and Guardian of the Ancient Kings cooldown by another second. So ideally, you should still end up going for the Avenging Wrath. Now let's go into our build line. So immediately you want to look at the fact that your first ability is considered your taunt ability without it directly being your taunt ability. The reason I say this because as much as you could go ahead and use your Hand of Reckoning, which does cost 60 mana, which isn't really bad for you because you have a 2000 mana pool anyway. That's the only spell that costs mana in your pool, excluding Judgment apparently. Avenger's Shield makes it to where it bounces from enemy to enemy. You do not gain holy charges based on the total enemies it hit, but you will still gain one holy charge off the get-go, as well as your initial target being dazed for that little bit. So as you can see here, when you throw it across, it does make your first target silenced, as well as having a light chance to daze the enemy. But what you want to do after using this first ability is then initiate by going in, throwing your Avenger's Shield to taunt the targets, and then drop Consecration. That will make it to where your Hammer of Righteous will have an echo effect, as you can see as it ripples around the side of the target dummy. This will allow you to end up grabbing everything that's within your Consecration range. It will not do an echo if you do not have Consecration down, and as a Paladin, you should always have Consecration down. This is extremely paramount to a Paladin's taunting-based survivability. At any point in time, if you see that a target is not being taunted by you, you can easily just click on the target and taunt from any direction. You do not need to be facing the target for a taunt to land. The ideal rotation that you would end up running for your Protection Paladin would be basically to open with your Avenger's Shield, then follow suit with dropping Consecration into throwing out a Hammer of the Righteous as well as a Judgment Hammer, which then will give you your first charge of Shield of the Righteous, which will not only make it to where you have reduced damage by getting increased armor, but every holy power spent will allow you to end up getting all the shining lights up and ready to go, to make it to where your next Holy Power ability is completely free. Or sorry, not Holy Power ability. Your Word of Glory will be a completely free cast by the time you get up to that 5th total charge. Because as you can see here, it will go up to 4. But your 5th total one will be the one that will allow you to have that free Word of Glory heal, which you will then see on the top of the screen like so. Do keep in mind though that your free cast that comes from Divine Purpose overwrites the Word of Glory heal. So keep that in mind as you end up casting your overall heal. Now, the other scenarios we need to talk about is exact points in time at which using your protection-based spells is important to paramount of your survival. Once you see your health start dropping a little bit below a comfortable point in time, ideally you would want to open with dropping your Argent Defender, which decreases the damage you take by an overall 20%. While Argent Defender is active, however, the next attack that would otherwise kill you will instead bring you to 20% maximum health. So this is the other scenario that you could either open with Argent Defender, which decreases your overall damage, or if it looks like it's going to be a problem still, you can then follow up with just using Guardian of Kings instead, which decreases your overall damage by 50%. This, however, is a 5-minute cooldown, whereas Argent Defender is a 2-minute cooldown. So you want to at least use these cooldowns moderately carefully and make sure that you can balance them all out, all at the end of the day. Your next very important protection-based spell is known as Divine Shield. This is the equivalent of using Lay on Hands on yourself, as this causes forbearance, which ends up making it to where you cannot cast an ability like this again on you in a very long time. If you ended up going for the talent at Final Stand at level 50, this will make it to where all targets within a very large range get taunted onto you no matter what. Divine Shield will allow you basically to take 0 damage for the next 8 seconds. And you cannot cast it on allies. You used to be able to cast it on allies, and then they got rid of it. I don't know why, probably because it was really OP. The Divine Shield will basically look like this. And then when you have the talent spec, it will taunt everything around you, even if it is not already aggroed or if it's not taunted onto you. For example, these pets would have been taunted directly onto me had I had the ability that taunted them to me. And then we talk about the Blessing of Spell Warning, which is the same thing actually as Divine Shield, however only for magic. That is something you have to keep in mind, as well as the fact that this can be targeted on other allies. But they have to be in your party, otherwise it will not end up working. This is what your spell ward will look like when you do the initial cast. It doesn't actually give you any colorful effects when you get attacked by a spell and successfully blocks it, however. But your Blessing of Spell Warding is exactly what you would need in a very precarious situation if there was one basic big boy magic damage hero, and then you would just put this on your person that's being focused by that. Now keep in mind though, as a paladin, we do have other spells that are still locked behind the fact that we're not level 60 yet. This will increase a lot of stuff based on this, and don't forget to swap out your auras. As a protection paladin, you should always be using Devotion Aura. Retribution Paladin Aura or Retribution Aura does not really change much here, and if somebody dies, then there's really a problem. And then when you're just traveling around and there's nothing else you need to do, always leave Crusader Aura up. Get that extra 20% move speed. And that concludes our light guide of not extremely pro paladin. I guess the best way to put it is not exactly try-hard paladin guide today. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed this not very difficult protection paladin guide, and we will see you next time for some more World of Warcraft action. This is Party PD, signing off. Hello ladies and gentlemen, I hope you thoroughly enjoyed this video on a protection paladin guide simplified by yours truly, Party PD. So without further ado, again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. We'll see you next time for some more World of Warcraft action. It's Party PD signing off.